Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WOR is back yet again. Your Friday nights, once again full of fun here at the World Online Racing channel. We are at Silverstone, here at the British Grand Prix circuit. Amazing stuff indeed. Certainly lots of, a motor racing feast we have got for you tonight here. And as you can imagine, we're very shortly going to be cruising down the Hanger Straight, round Stowe, through the likes of Maggots and Beckett's as well. Tantalising racing, here to come, here tonight. Be sure to stay tuned. But firstly, let me introduce you to, back again, Sam Thompson. Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, George. Good evening, everybody, and welcome, of course, to the original Grand Prix, of course. Back in 1950 was the first ever Grand Prix in Formula One.
We seem to be having some issues with Sam.
Around this track, and of course, so many famous ones as well. And this... Oh, am I here?
We seem to be having some audio problems, Sam. It seems to be cutting in and out. I'm not sure whether it's a connectivity issue or something like that, but we'll have to wait and see, folks. But like I say, we're just waiting on qualifying to begin, of course, and what a championship it has been so far. VRT Bellina currently tops the championship, 50 points in the offing. He's ahead of Shazoo Midnight by 9 points. The gap is ever so slim. One win, one positive result, and one negative for the other can make all the difference. Sam, are you back with us?
I think I am.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are back.
Well, I mean, this championship looks like it's going right down to the wire, isn't it? 9 points between them halfway through the season. It's what you love to see, isn't it? And Ballina, of course, with, let's just say, a rather fortunate win in France. But we cannot deny that the performance from both those drivers was absolutely insane. And that race in France was surprisingly better than perhaps what many people would have expected, considering it is, of course, France. But yeah, Ballina with the win, but harsh for Midnight, wasn't it, really, in the end of that puncture?
It was a very crunching blow, I think, to say the least. I mean, naturally, to have that sort of thing happen to you heading around the final corner, certainly at France, is just absolutely gutting. And I've got to say, it does put a very tantalising affair in prospect, of course. Alfa Romeo, once again, going against Mercedes, and it's going to be very, very interesting. But don't forget the likes of Matthew as well, representing NWS. You've got Shazoo, or should I say VRT Luke, should I say Shazoo name changer there as well. VRT Pat is in the mix. Still plenty of racing left. We're about halfway through the season. We've still got another half of the calendar left to go. Some of the best circuits in the world on this calendar as well. And you're not going to miss... You don't want to miss any of this, put it this way. And very shortly we will be heading out to qualifying. But obviously, to summarise, it certainly seems to be a Bellina at midnight race so far.
Oh yeah, definitely so. Of course, both drivers winning this season, and again, as we referred to France, it was pretty much just a show for them to, we were just waiting for Ballina to strike his move, and of course, he wouldn't have done it in the end if it weren't for Midnight's puncture. But you got to see. Here. They both got two teammates as well that are looking to win the teams, the constructors, Cohen and Ash Best, both two quality drivers alongside Midnight and Ballina. But not only that, I think towards the end of the season, they'll kind of play that teammate role and kind of play that second driver role to make sure that their driver or their teammate will end up as the Drivers' Championship and therefore also possibly the Constructors' Champions as well. So still a lot of things still to go, but yeah, Ballina, Midnight, they seem to be running away with it, but don't count out a bunch of drivers, because there are a bunch of drivers on this grid that can definitely cause a shock in the second half of the season.
They certainly can. Still plenty of racing in the offing. And here is our championship leader, VRT Bellina, who's currently in top spot in the championship. As I said before, 50 points, half a century on the board already for the driver of the Alfa Romeo car. Now round in the next left-hander, you'll head down the Wellington Straight. There's Dynastics as well in the offing. He is in the Williams here tonight. And of course, you can see there Racing Point just rushing by. That, of course, being Rudy. There you've got CC Brain as well in the Alpha Tauri as they round the next right. Certainly leaves up a very, very tasty prospect. Of course, Ash Best, a very, very good performer as well, coordinator for this tier as well. So he has a lot of responsibility. But Alfa Romeo come here certainly fully heavy artillery to say the least, and naturally a good teammate partnership to really take a fight to the constructors' standings.
Yeah, most certainly. I think obviously Ash Best at the moment in 9th in the championship, at the moment, and of course the last 2 rounds that he has raced in, he hasn't scored points, so it's a little bit of poor form for Ashbest at the moment, but he's looking to recover that here in Silverstone, and it is a track that a lot of people do like as well, so expect to see a lot of drivers with good performances here. But Ashbest, I believe, has left the session, so I think he's having a few connection issues, or unless we have a lobby reset, I don't know, because Cookie Games has just left as well, all of a sudden. But yeah, both Mercedes and both Alfa Romeo look like they are the top teams to beat at the moment, but we do need to talk about perhaps Matthew in third place. A good result here. He has been consistent, but he hasn't been on the podium yet. But a good result here could put him back in the title frame. But yeah, it does look like Midnight Ballon at the moment. But in terms of the constructors, again, it's very, very close between both Alfa Romeo and Mercedes. And I expect that to be the same towards the end of the season as well.
It certainly will be. I think we are in line for a lobby restart here, folks, so do bear with us. We will be back with some racing shortly. Sounds like we're having a few issues currently with the PlayStation servers, or certainly with the lobbies. We are waiting for them to get on board and get something lined up for us. But I have to say, it will be an interesting prospect heading into the race. Of course, Silverstone, 150,000 capacity circuit with plenty of legendary corners. I mean, when you get from the get-go, you look at it heading in towards Copse, around that right-hander, heading down through Magneton, Beckett's as well, those sorts of bends as well. But just think about this. You go through the Hamilton Straight, that, of course, the main straight. That is where you start. Abbey, into Farm, Village, the Loop, heading through Aintree, Wellington Straight, heading into Brooklands, Luffield, then into Woodcote, heading down the Old Paddock Straight into Copse, Maggots, Beckett's, through Chapel Curve, out down the Hanger Straight, round Stowe, Vale, Club, and then right back down towards the Hamilton Straight again. There has never been, I don't think, maybe Spa, Francorchamps, maybe at Japan as well, where you've got corners that are so notorious in the world of motorsport.
Yeah, and some of them don't even, well, except for Maggots and Beckett's perhaps, and perhaps Copse and Stowe get a good mention, but a lot of these corners, although they're famous names, they don't exactly give you that sort of identity feel that perhaps like at Japan, you've got obviously the S's, and obviously at Belgium, you've got El Rouge, and obviously Pouon, etc., and the bus stop chicane for that matter. But obviously, there are a lot of corners around the Silverstone circuit that are just famous simply because they've been here for so long, that the names have been here since the start. And I think that is what makes this circuit so iconic, is this track has had obviously renovations over the years, and it has changed over the years, but the corners, they're just so famous. You know every single one. If you're a true F1 fan, you will know pretty much every single corner around the Silverstone circuit. And I think that's exactly what makes this track in general so iconic.
It certainly does, and we're going to be seeing some more great racing here tonight as well, folks. It's going to be really intriguing to see how this plays out, of course. And I have to say, I hope you're all enjoying yourselves in the live chat as well. Please send in your comments, questions, anything to myself and Sam, of course, and we will answer them as best we can. Lovely to have you all here with us this Friday evening, of course. And please leave your tips as to who you think is going to prevail here tonight. Plenty of names here in the offing, and obviously PlayStation 4 getting off to a great start. Of course, here at WOR, lots to look forward to as well. Their first venture into PS4 League Racing, and already we're seeing some fireworks from the get-go. We had a very exciting race at France that, of course, myself and, of course, Ginger Andy took part in as commentators. Andy was alongside me. Unfortunately, can't be here tonight, but we have got Sam Thompson nonetheless, who, of course, if you hadn't seen, commentated alongside me as well for the pre-season races as well. We had a lot of fun with those as well, didn't we, Sam?
Oh yeah, definitely. That China race, of course, was quite chaotic, really, and well, it really gave us a good taster, perhaps, of what PlayStation is about. And I think that first race as well, in Bahrain, as well, because Australia got cancelled, unfortunately. We were all geared up for that, but it was a busy week that week, and a lot of drivers were unfortunately not able to turn up. But we did get up to racing in Bahrain, and I tell you what, that was an absolute cracker of a race. I really enjoyed it. So I'm expected to see more, really. This is a track which usually provides action, and usually is a track with a lot of corners where a lot of overtaking can be made. So I'm intrigued to see how tonight goes. And not only that, looking at the previous rounds, France and the Netherlands, for example, the races there were absolutely amazing, and they're not tracks that you usually get good racing. So a track that you do get good racing, well, we're in for a fun night tonight.
We are, and naturally, I'm really looking forward to it. I think the key section, of course, is going to be Maggots and Beckett's. Who is going to keep the traction levels on the car heading through those bends? Obviously, it's very easy to get oversteer, understeer, whatever it may be, heading through those bends, clipping the curbs. Can also be your best friend, but also your worst enemy at the same time. Heading out of Chapel, down through that long paddock straight, and then, of course, the DRS usually opens up at that point, allowing you to make the overtake. Of course, we will be waiting for us to rejoin quali very, very shortly. But like I said before, amazing scenes that we've had already this season. We have been certainly dealt a huge championship fight. Bellina currently on top. Shazoo, Midnight, of course. 2 wins to Bellina, of course. Not forgetting Midnight, who has got a win on the board. Remember, he won at Bahrain, which I believe was the first race of the season, which was absolutely scintillating. What a way to start for Midnight, of course. And it looked like on that performance that he was going to be a really tricky man to beat. Not forgetting at France, where, of course, he was leading pretty much the entire way. Bellina managing to scrape it at the end. But remember, it was a puncture that brought havoc to Midnight's event. Remember as well, Sam, he had 100% ERS at the end of that race. Literally, he didn't even have to press the button. He was literally quicker without it.
Yeah, Midnight looking very confident. And I tell you what, recently, just in general, Midnight's pace has just been on another level. He's really moved up the grid in other leagues as well, and he really looks quite quick even here as well. And he looks very threatening, and perhaps Balliner is leading right now, but obviously the puncher probably ruined Midnight's lead of that championship in the end. And well, yeah, his ERS saving was very, very impressive. Like saving it all to the end and not even dumping it all. He was able to keep ahead nice and easy. And even if Balliner could get a strike at Midnight on the second to last lap, for example, Midnight would just easily get back past because he had the ERS to do so the next lap. So really impressive, and he's going to be looking really threatening with that tonight, I reckon, because again, Silverstone is a track where you can follow quite easily, and so that means Slipstream is obviously most likely going to play a counterpart to overtakes, etc. So Midnight will likely be able to save his ERS a little more, just so drivers obviously don't get by and have to use a little more themselves.
Do you think that on the basis of what happened last week at France that Midnight's going to want to turn that around? Because naturally he must be feeling obviously despondent at the fact that he, of course, was right up there for that race win. He had it on a silver plate. It was right in front of him and he was ready to take it. Another 25 points in the offing. It was going to be him that was going to be a 2-time race winner at the start of the season, where, of course, Bellina took that honour, of course, after he had the puncture. He must be feeling a little bit of disparity, obviously, after losing out due to that tyre puncture. Do you think he's going to come back here with renewed vigour and a lot of threat against Bellina tonight?
Well, I know Midnight very well. I've known him for a long, long time. And if you had to define someone who has a cool head when it comes to racing, it is Midnight. And although he is very young still, I think he's still 13, so he's a very young driver, but his mind and everything, he is so cool in the race and everything. And I have to credit his mentality when it comes to league racing. And you very rarely see him pop off. And of course, it is likely he would be frustrated with France, but I'm sure that's kind of gone in the past for him now. I'm sure he's moved on from that and realised these things happen. That's life. Let's move on. Let's get to next round. It's not all over. Let's get going again. And I'm sure Midnight will be able to be motivated and confident here tonight as well. And it's going to be a very, very tricky season for Balliner going forward, because you're not going to get this fortune of the driver or the championship rival to get a puncher every single weekend. It's just not going to happen. So obviously Balliner needs to know that maybe it was a one-off. Maybe it was a major amount of fortune there that Midnight got that puncher. So he needs to keep his eye out, because Midnight, again, very cool-headed, very calm, and when he needs to get things done, he'll get it done. He
certainly does. He is certainly one to watch heading through this championship. Naturally, having him and Midnight together has really brought certainly a lot of plaudits. A lot of people very excited to see where this championship battle goes. We're only halfway through the season, so we've got a long way to go yet, folks. and plenty of racing to be had. Like I said, plenty of legendary circuits coming up. We've still got to come through to Belgium, Italy, Japan, Austria, Abu Dhabi, and Brazil. There's literally a who's who there of great circuits, and we cannot wait until we can bring the rest of the season to you. But of course, what we've got to worry about tonight is Silverstone, and like we've quite rightly said, this is going to be a fascinating event. We are back here now at the paddock of Silverstone, ready to go yet again for another qualifying session. And of course, Sam, this is obviously going to be an interesting one now, because naturally the drivers who may have been psyched ready for the previous qualifying session now have had another break, almost a break in proceedings. Now, that could potentially upset the balance of things. Maybe they'll start feeling a little uncomfortable. You know, they've had to wait again a little bit longer, and now that they're back again on track, does that throw a little bit of a curveball in the situation when it comes to qualifying?
I think if there was someone midway through a lap, of course it's nice that it's obviously the opening sort of part of qualifying where you're only going to get your bankers in. But I think there will be a sense of frustration for those on a lap that they have to basically yield from that lap and try again. And obviously with it being dynamic weather, or well, it could be, I'm not sure if it's been set to the weather it's meant to be in qualifying and the race. If that is the case, it still could be different. The temperatures could be different, so the car could actually feel completely different for these drivers. Maybe it's more uncomfortable, maybe it's more stable. So these drivers have got a lot to consider now, that they're in a new session, technically new conditions as well, particularly with the temperatures perhaps, and maybe some new things to need to work on. But at least with a good thing for the drivers, some of them did stay in the lobby, in the previous lobby for quite some time. And I think they got a little bit of practice just to feel a little bit in the moment. So it could go either way, really, for drivers. They could either feel quite anxious or quite frustrated, or they could just feel quite relaxed, knowing that they've been able to get a little bit more track time than others and now know where they're going to be at. Absolutely.
Well, now witnessing these drivers now make their way down the Hangar Straight. And very shortly, we'll be heading around Stowe, of course. Just look at that. The good conglomerate of drivers certainly making their way around Stowe. And there's Dino, of course. But I want to take a look at his teammate as well. That, of course, this would be VRT Pat's car, if you remember. Now, last week at France, what a sensational performance from VRT Pat. Literally sent it on the track. He performed a double overtake. It was my overtake of the race. Haas coming here in reasonable form. They've had some very positive results. Certainly look like a team to watch out for. So a big sense of responsibility on Dino's part tonight, because he is in a car that was indeed owned by Pat at the time. And, it's gonna be a lot of pressure. Can they maintain that run of form?
Well, there are some big shoes to fill sometimes, and obviously Pat's performance was absolutely class in France, and it's going to be very hard to achieve something similar. But Dan, he's in VRT like Pat. They're both in the same team, and I'm sure Dan will be looking to make his team proud as much as Pat did. So I'm expecting some good times from both of them, and from Dan this week, obviously from Pat last week, and I'm expecting Dan to show a similar performance. But there's a lot of different drivers here tonight that we have to talk about that probably weren't here last night, and there's a bunch of drivers as well who we expect to be higher up the championship order, potentially, like Lars, for example. I expect Lars Kramer to come out strong here, fiery early on from open doors. The McLaren driver not too high up the Drivers' Championship, down in 19th at the moment with only a point. I expect him to do well tonight, but there's a bunch of drivers on this grid that I don't really know too much about, and we could be in for a very close battle. CC Brain is the early one to set a lap at 24.0. Expect, obviously, then at that point, we'll be getting into the 23s.
Yeah, absolutely. And here comes Bellina now, as Cornet now goes to top spot, breaks the 123s with a 123.951. Can Bellina go top spot? He does! A 123.727, just an over 0.2 of a second quicker than Shazoo Cornet. Now, don't forget, Shazoo Midnight is also out on a lap as well. He, of course, is also in the championship fight and making his way through Maggots and Beckett. So Bellina now owning top spot. And you can imagine that Shazoo come here pretty well packed in this league. They've got Midnight, they've got Cohen as well, and Simon as well as Cornet. And they're very, very heavily armed here, Shazoo, as well as VRT, who have got names in here, NWS as well. plenty of esports team drivers in this league, of course. The top tier of PlayStation here for WOR. It's certainly a pleasure to watch as now we see Shazoo Midnight round in the final corner, heading across, and he will go into P2 literally by a fly's eyelash, separating him and Belina. Literally a small matter there, well within a tenth of a second, probably be a quarter of it, to be fair there, Sam.
Yeah, well, we talk about Verstappen versus Hamilton this year. We're talking about Ballina versus Midnight. We're talking about the Thai driver versus the Dutch driver. We're talking about, technically, Alex Albon versus Verstappen, but it didn't exactly work that way out in real life, so we'll keep to Hamilton and Verstappen, but it's basically like that at the moment. I have to say, with these two at the top, and yeah, very close again. Cornet 2/10 off Midnight between second and third, and it just seems to show these two at the top, they know where they want to be. They want to be at that top. If they're not at that top, they're not going to be happy. So expect to see these guys just flying in, basically playing a game of tennis. Like, who's going to hit it first and who is going to strike right at the end of qualifying. And then obviously it will basically be game, set, and match come the end of the race. But Ballina on top at the moment. Expect Midnight to come back, though, the next time drivers come in for laps.
Yeah.
Through for laps.
Yeah, Mathieu there coming into P7 as well for Renault with a 124.121. Now, if you look at the top order there, and in fact the top, I'd say the top 10 all separated by approximately half a second, which is absolutely extraordinary. Already seeing some very, very fast times coming in. And Mathieu there just outside the 3/10 window, or just, well, in fact, he's inside the 3/10 window, which is incredible. And I have to say, in P7, there you can see Dynastics, of course, his esports teammate, who's donning the Williams in the, well, certainly in the Williams in the colour blue. Currently in the pit lane, he's up into P6. Legend there in P5. We got plenty of cars out on track. Shazoo Cohen as well. The other Mercedes. We haven't probably seen the best of Cohen as of late. Of course, he has been in the points positions, but he is known to be considerably quicker than what he's shown. Obviously, a great opportunity here at Silverstone for Cohen to turn this all around.
Yeah, and he's in good form as well. If you refer to other leagues, he's in good form. He's not in good form in WOR, though, which is obviously a bit different, and a lot of different drivers different to this grid. So Cohen needs to pick up the pace a little bit, but if he is going to go by his form, perhaps overall, when it comes to league racing in general, then I think Cohen can definitely be a contender for podiums, maybe even wins to this grid, and he really needs to support Midnight coming into a difficult period where he's behind Ballina. And I tell you what, he's looking a bit skittish at the rear end. That has probably not been good for his lap time. I believe he's 3/10 down on Midnight there, so I believe at the moment he will be slotting in around 7th place, so around where Mathieu is at the moment, as we just see Cohen coming round the final few corners through Club then, and let's see what lap time it's going to be for Cohen. Is he in the 23s? No, he's not. And I wonder if that was down to that slight skittish moment at the end of Maggots and Beckett's. Well,
he is up. He's the earliest of the 124s, and he's into P4. So that's a Mercedes 2 and 4. So a good start from them, to say the least. Bellina's out in the lap, so is Midnight. Here comes VRT Luke in the Red Bull, of course. Now, this man is also in the championship fight. P4 currently to his name in the driver standings, and coming off a very, very despondent French GP. And no points scored for the Red Bull. But as he now climbs his way up towards Stowe, he will be looking to nestle that Red Bull higher up the table and looking for redemption after that trip to the Paul Ricard circuit, as we now make our way down through the final sector. There you can see Dino there ahead of him. Obviously, it won't cause any problems for him at this stage now, where Luke comes across the line, and that's P8 with a 124.079. Just look at this, though, Sam. You've got CC Brain, Legend, Luke. Just look at this. 24.076, 24.078, 24.079. Extraordinary.
That is absolutely incredible. How close these drivers can get in league racing. This just defines league racing, doesn't it? Like how close the drivers are when it comes to their performances, and they're all putting in a very close performance. There's one person I do want to talk about, and that is Messina Rakin. That is actually Shazoo name changer, I believe, just in case anyone is a little confused who he is because you haven't seen him before. And he is another person that technically that is in kind of a bit of a title battle at the moment with the front two, or he could consider it with a good result today, and he got his first podium of the season, and he has obviously been in challenges, and now challenges is finished. He can now focus back on the league racing. So I'm wondering to see what Messina can do coming through now that he's done the challenges, and he doesn't need to perhaps practice for he doesn't need to practice for it at all since it's finished now. So expect to see him perhaps being put in a bit more time into WOR and league races. So we could be seeing the Williams driver perhaps enter this battle with a good performance, and he's in third right now behind the two leaders.
Yeah, and it's a good place to be, and he's ahead of some big names as well. Cohen and Cornet as well, and certainly no mugs when it comes to racing. Indeed, under these conditions, as we now see at Midnight hightail it through Maggots and Beckett's, and naturally looking to try and topple Bellina off top spot. Now, as the track obviously warms up, we're going to see some quicker times come through. He's gone half a tenth slower in Sector 2, but he's flying and at least trying to plant an improved lap time here on Bellina. Just want to say a big shout out to Pat. Hello, Sam and George. Everything all right, he says. I say, yes, Pat. We are delighted to be here at Silverstone and delighted to have you here in the chat as well, as we're now seeing Midnight come across the line. Is it going to be P1? Not this time. It's a 123.7. It still remains a 747, so he will remain in P2 for now. Bellina keeping his time for the time being, as we're now seeing Cornet coming through very shortly around the first sector, and very interesting to see. We got an Alfa Romeo on top with a Mercedes in P2, as Legend now up to P4, Messina Rakin down to P5, and Dynastics his teammate as well in P6. So Williams currently the closest group together in Ps 5 and 6.
Yeah, and Cornet piling the pressure on. I've not seen too much of Cornet this year, but he has had a good result in the Netherlands. He got a podium. Of course, it was an all-Dutch podium out there, that time out with KJ Eltink second, who's not... Is he here tonight? He's not here tonight, which is unfortunate. We haven't seen much of KJ Eltink for a little while, who did seem to show promise, of course, on the preseason race, winning that, and of course, almost winning in the Dutch Grand Prix, which of course went to Ballina in the end. But Cornet, he's been a little bit quiet since his podium in the Netherlands, and he's up there again, and he's actually less than a tenth off these two leaders who seemed like they were quite far away a little while ago, but it seems to be closing in, which does tell me, George, that we are starting to get the quick laps in. The track's starting to heat up, the track is starting to be a lot better for these drivers and a lot more grippier, and they're finding more grip out there. So we're in for a little bit of a roller coaster ride in these final 5 minutes. Yeah,
they certainly will all be crawling out now, and as you can see, Matthew improving up into P7, so it's certainly a great visit there from that man. Cookie Games, who's yet to nestle the time on the board, moves up to P11 there with a 124.115. Exquisite there from the prancing horse. He'll be delighted with that improvement. Right off the bottom, up 9 places into P11. So he can be absolutely chuffed with that result now. Cohen coming around the next right as well. Now he's looking to plant that Mercedes higher up. In fact, he's slowing down, not happy with the time set. Must have made a mistake, and he allows through VRT Dan, who's now making his way down the old paddock straight. Soon he'll exit through Cops, and very soon around Maggots and Beckett's to commence his flying lap. Just look at this contingent though above though. Cohen, like I said, out and about. CC Brain as well, who if you remember was near the top at the very start of qualifying. And he got his teammate TTG Benny, who's currently out on track as well, as he now rounds through the final sector. He's into Sector 2, which I say the final part of Sector 1, heading into Sector 2 now. And very shortly, he'll be heading towards Maggots and Beckett's as well, as soon as he exits the paddock straight. And you got HRT Agoro as well, another one of the Ferrari drivers, down in P15. Joey as well, the other Red Bull, in P16. He'll be looking to improve as well as he now makes his way through Sector 1. So all the drivers now venturing out to the track. We're heading into squeaky bum time territory, folks. The final 4 minutes are upon us. Please leave your predictions for pole position in the live chat, folks.
Yeah, and look at Ballina coming through club right now. I didn't see if he was up or down in this time. Looks like a quite neat lap, but here he comes across the line. What's it going to be? It's a 0.5. Well, this is a spanner in the works to Midnight, who perhaps needs to speed up a little bit. The last lap Midnight did was actually down on his previous time, so it shows that Midnight kind of is not really improving, but again, we don't know the pure pace. But I tell you what, that is a really good lap from Ballina there. A 23.5, that's going to be very difficult to beat. I do want to mention, though, look how close this grid is, though. Look how close the times are. 5 tenths between the top 13, and that obviously does include the fact that Ballina has just set that blistering lap time of a 23.5 there. But before that, it was like 3 tenths between the top 13, top 14 drivers. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, now about this from HRT Agoro up into P4. First visit to PSGL here, and he's managed to plant his car on P4. Very impressive with the 123.835. And just over 2.5 tenths of a second slower than Ballina as well. So he's right up there in the fight. And Ferrari would be delighted to have a man of his caliber certainly in amongst this grid. But just look at the separation there across the grid. P1 and P19 separated by just over a mere second out on track. Now that is what real racing is made of, folks. Just look at this. And looking further down, Cohen is out on an outlap as well. Everyone's in the pits waiting for the clock to strike downwards. We are going to be seeing everyone exiting very, very shortly. It's going to be a mass battle for whoever can grab pole position as we now watch Simon heading around the next left-hander.
And whereas Simon, he's coming through sector 1, Dino's coming towards the end of his lap. I believe he was around 4 attempts up, so he should be up on his lap. A small mistake of the exit. What's it going to be? A 24.4, so it doesn't move up places. Simon, though, on a lap. This is going to be interesting towards the end.
It will do. It certainly will do. Simon now coming down towards the next straight, and he's currently in sector 2, and he needs to really rack up a staunch improvement. His teammate Matthew in the top 10. Of course, challenging for the title, and you've got to give him every bit of credit. Matthew is in great form, as we discussed. 10 points in his race at Bahrain, 12 points then heading into the Netherlands, and not forgetting a 10-point visit in France as well. So certainly doing the Renault team proud, and I'm sure the 10 points was a huge boon, certainly to the French team, who can certainly celebrate that, as we're now watching Simon head around Stowe now, and very shortly down towards Vale, through Vale, down towards the club corner. And as you can now see him head through it now. Very, very tight this one. You need to get it right. Do not plant your foot on the gas too much. A slight bit of oversteer there from the Renault as he comes across the line into... He does not improve. A 24.292. In fact, that was an improvement time, but not an improved position. And Cookie Games, he is retired. He doesn't think he's going to improve. But Cohen is out on a flying lap. Let's see what the other Mercedes man can do here, Sam.
Yeah, and I'm just going to watch Ash Best. He's under pressure, but he's going to complete a lap finally around this lap. Where is he going to slot? It's P7 for Ash Best, so he's doing what he needs to do to help his teammate Ballina at the moment, and of course, make himself look competitive up there in P7. 4 attempts off the pace, though, still from Ballina. Will he go again is the question. I don't think he will. Let's just go on board with Cohen, though, George, because this is where we're going to play a little bit of ping-pong here. Is Cohen going to be beating Ash Best here tonight, and is he going to be helping Midnight out? Is Midnight going to help himself out and beat Ballina to the line and get that pole position, though?
Yeah, I have to say, it's going to be intriguing. Here comes Cohen now, heading up towards Maggots and Beckett's. And just look at this now, heading into this section of bends, into the left, into the right. Downshifts once, heading through the left, downshifts twice, heading around towards Chapel, powering out of gear 5, quick shift up to 6, up to 7th, and now through the hangar straight. Very shortly, heading up towards Stowe. And he'll break just after the 50, I'd imagine, heading in. Yes, he does. Downshifts twice, heading up shift once, twice, now down through Vale into the club corner. In comes the black arrow of the Mercedes now. A little error, a little slip as they come through the next right-hander. Maybe a little bit sluggish, comes across the line, and it's P2, and he does break his teammate Midnight. Bellina's finished as well in P1, but let's see what Midnight can do. He's heading now around that right-hander through Cops, and now he's got a battle on his hands. His teammate has just outpaced him, heading through Maggots and Beckett's now, down through the next left. He'll head through Chapel very, very shortly. He powers out. DRS active. Very, very key lap this is for Midnight now. Cornet goes quicker into P3 at 123.734. Midnight knows the pressure is on. Currently lying P2 in the championship. Heading down through Vale, down towards the club corner. It certainly is going to be now or never, certainly for Midnight, as the clock strikes 12. Legend comes through to P3. The racing point improves. Here comes the black arrow. Improves by 1 and goes up into P4, but it's not enough to scrape onto the front row of the grid. And Legend will take that optimal P3 spot against Midnight. Impressive time from the racing point. He'll be absolutely delighted with that. CC Brain up into P6. VRT Luke up into P7. Scintillating stuff here by these guys. Ash Best retires in P12. Messina Rakeen down in P11. Rudy getting into the top 10. Exquisite. But it's all about Ballina. Ballina bringing back the battle. And I have to say, the championship leader is looking very confident, Sam.
Yeah, he definitely is. Really good lap time. I don't even think that was his final lap. because his final lap, I'm guessing he invalidated because he didn't improve, but 1/10 clear was the end, and that lap was just a biscuit, weren't it? Of course, he was going to get pole position with that lap. It was an absolute clean lap. It was brilliant. But look who's in second place, Cohen for Mercedes. It's not the Mercedes we would have thought to be in second place, but a brilliant lap from the Shizou driver and from the Mercedes driver for that matter. And I wonder what he's going to do coming into the first couple of corners, because he'll be working perhaps with Midnight to perhaps work as teammates. But also, I'm sure Cohen would want to take a bit of a piece of the pie himself and take a race victory. But look how close this grid is, though, George. The top 10 separated by less than 3 tenths here. Just shows how close and how exciting this race is going to be.
Absolutely. Bellina is on top spot, folks. He is your pole position. And impressive to note as well that looking at it on paper, the top 3 are all Dutch. Amazing stuff indeed. They certainly have mastered this game. And then Corny as well in P5, also a Dutchman. VRT Luke in P7, also a Dutchman. And Rudy. It's a very much a Dutch-dominated grid here. But Bellina's on top spot. Cohen in P2, Legend P3, Midnight P4, and Corny in P5, CC Brain P6, Luke P7, Igoro P8, Metiu in P9, Dynastics P10, Rudy P11, Messina Rakeen in P12, Ashbest P13, Jury P14, Cookie Games P15 with Lars Kramer P16, TTG Benny in P17, Simon P18, Dino P19, and VRT Dan, last of all, P20. But obviously, lots to look forward to heading into the race, folks. Bellina, though, on top in the championship battle, but also the qualifying battle at Silverstone. It's a phenomenal performance here, Sam.
Yeah, definitely. And you look how close everyone else is. And look at Ballina. He's completely clear. There's less than a tenth between everyone, I'm pretty sure, except from obviously at the back of the grid, where the bottom 2 are separated by a little bit of a margin from everyone else. But in terms of the car in front of everyone else or behind everyone else, there's less than a tenth between all of them. And Ballina has stretched that gap to over a tenth. He is the only one really to do that. And it just shows how much pace he has got here tonight. And he is looking very confident. He's won the last 2 races, particularly after a disappointing result in Bahrain, not picking up any points. He is on fire and he is going for it. But like I said, this is going to be really unpredictable. You've got a Mercedes in second. It's not the Mercedes of Midnight, it's the Mercedes of Cohen. Will Cohen play the team game and try and get past Ballina very quickly and try and help Midnight from there? Or would he just go in all himself and get the victory? So it's going to be a very interesting evening. And not only that, we talk about the team battles. Alfa Romeo haven't really got that leverage for Ballina that perhaps Midnight has with Cohen at the moment. Since Ashbest, I think, is down in P12 or something. But don't let that distract you. If a safety car comes out and everything, this race could completely change on its head.
It certainly can. And I have to say, I'm looking forward to this. You must think, though, that Midnight must be hurting. He came into this season, he looked like he was the main man at Mercedes, looked like he was going to take the victories. He literally looked so confident in France as well, and especially after a cracking win at Bahrain. He certainly did seem to me a big, mighty favourite to take the PS4 championship. But just look at this, out-qualified by his teammate, who has not really looked like out-qualifying him all season. Cohen taking it off him, onto the front row of the grid, for that matter. Just how much is Midnight going to be suffering from that performance there, Luke, Sam?
Yeah, I think it will actually be a little bit of a frustrating one for Midnight. I know I said earlier about him being a cool head, and he still probably will, but at the end of the day, that's the worst thing, to get out-qualified by a teammate and everything, especially when you really want to show that dominance. You want to be that guy at the top, and obviously you've proven you're at the top of the championship because of your results recently in the league, of course. But for Midnight, it's going to be a frustrating one, but he's going to use this as a potential booster to make him more angry. You know how Lewis Hamilton works. You make Lewis Hamilton angry, and he will work even harder to win. So I wonder if that's the same sort of thing that Midnight has. And we've seen Midnight can overtake. He can overtake so well, he can. And I mean, I tell you, we could be in for a very interesting race if Midnight can prove those overtakes again. Not only that, interesting strategies outside the top 10. Half of them gone for the soft tyres, half for the mediums. And it is overcast here, George. So would we be seeing a little bit of rain? Maybe sooner than later?
Well, it sort of makes you wonder. I mean, naturally, if they have done their research, certainly when it comes to the weather forecast, naturally, those opting for the soft tyres may be predicting maybe some rain forecast around lap 7 or something like that, lap 8. Obviously, not soon enough to put the wets on or the intermediates on straight away, but naturally try and ease your way through the race first. Make sure that you're at least competitive for the first 6 to 7 laps, then maybe get onto the wet tyres. I'm sort of thinking that maybe they're expecting something to come through around that time. Obviously, maybe not too deep into the race as to use mediums from the get-go. So, yeah, I can sort of see the method of thinking there, Sam. It does make you wonder whether that is the strategy heading into this race. And that will make it very, very interesting to see how those who have started on the medium tyres down the bottom of the classification, how they're going to fare throughout this race. But I'm going to ask you, Sam, now, as they're about to line up onto the grid, your prediction, please. Tell me what it is.
Oh, great. Here we go. Well, if you want a podium from me, I'm going to go ballsy here. I'm going to say Cohen's going to win, Ballina second, Midnight third. And that's no disrespect to Legend. And, well, we were just saying about rain, right? I'm pretty sure it's starting to rain. It's just done that graphic thing when you're on the onboard where it changes.
Well, it certainly is. Want your predictions in the live chat as well, folks. Please do hit us up with who you think is going to win the British Grand Prix. Here we go. The race is on here at WOR. First light, second light, third light, fourth light, the fifth light. And it's pedal to the metal. Go, 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 go. Bellina gets away very well indeed. Midnight maybe looking slightly sluggish there in behind as well. No, he does get a reasonable getaway. He is trampled upon, though. In front of him, Cornet. CC Brain there as well. Legend and Cohen going wheel to wheel. And I have to say, Legend looking very vicious from the get-go as the inside line. Heading now through the 8-tree corner. There's still wheel to wheel. But the pink Mercedes relents. They're going nose to tail through. There's Alfa Romeo off in the back as well. Chaotic start here. But again, Midnight really suffering here at Silverstone.
Oh, that was a disappointing start for Midnight. He's dropped a couple of positions there, I think, to CC Brain and originally to Cornet, and I think even Dynastics got by him at the point, but he's seemed to recover it a little bit up to 5th place, but he's dropped the position to CC Brain. Not the start he would have wanted, as CC Brain's everywhere now, so Midnight perhaps could come back at him, but he has got a little bit of a gap here. But Legend as well. We haven't talked about Legend that much, and Legend seems to be on the back of Cohen and giving it a right old go at him at the moment.
Yeah, well, here comes Dynastics as well, looking for a move here on Cornet, who looked like a promising advocate here for a McLaren in this race. He's certainly dropped down a few places. He's down in P6, and the Williams of Dynastics having a little look at their fellow British constructor as they head down towards the next left. It's getting really tight now as they head through the final sector. Still leading the way, Bellina looking very comfortable, has already marshalled a gap of approximately half a second, which is absolutely incredible. CC Brain still holding on to that P3, an auspicious performance already, despite having that little slip heading through that section. Legend, should I say, in P3, holding his own as well. Currently ghosted, however, which is not going to help him, as we now see CC Brain trying to attack the racing point as they come through the next left-hander, but Midnight is clocking every move that man in the AlphaTauri makes. They're now cascading down through the Wellington Straight, down through Brooklands, and still all in tandem. No mishmashes to report there, folks. All very steady so far, but an incredible performance from Bellina, already marched out half a second of deficit.
Yeah, and it does look like a little bit more. I wonder if the delta's slightly broken there, because it does look like a little bit more than half a tenth. But it is starting to rain here, George. So those going on the soft tyres outside the top 10 may have benefited from this, except for Cookie Games at the moment. He's in 11th place. He is losing time, but on the medium tyres, he seems to be going quite strong. Looking behind, though, Ashbest fighting with Yuri. There is a yellow flag through sector 1. That would be Dan. I don't know why that is. I think that might be just one of those lobby glitches. Shouldn't be a problem.
Here comes Ashbest.
Ashbest down the inside. Nice and easy move through Stowe. Yes, it is. Got to be careful on the exit because he's still there, the Red Bull. The Red Bull is still going to be there. Is he sending it down the inside? He thinks about it, but half-minded and just decides to back out in the end. So Ashbest up to 12th. That's still good battling, though, going on between the Alfa Romeo and the Red Bull.
Yeah, and the rain coming down harder here at Silverstone. Certainly the British have certainly brought the weather with them as they now head through the first sector. You see the droplets falling on the cameras here, folks. Rudy getting very close to the back of Jory as well. The Red Bull feeling a little uncomfortable. A diving move there from Rudy. That's not rude at all, he says. A little slip there from Jory as they head through Aintree. And as they come down the stretch now, still wheel to wheel down the Wellington Straight there. Brooklyn's beckoning. The Racing Point, absolutely brilliant. Gets the move done and slips himself ahead of the Red Bull. No wings for Jury. He's down in P13. A scintillating move, but he might yet get a chance to tag it back. No, he doesn't. Rudy holds on. P12.
Yeah, and obviously this is at this point it's a time ticking bomb as well. Making the moves now is so important. Cookie Game's now up to 10th. I don't know why he's up to 10th or how he's got up to 10th, but Yuri going very wide. He may even lose a position here to Lars Kramer, who's going to be through back into Beckett's here. Be careful not to hit into him. He had a little bit of a tumble with Balliner a couple of rounds ago, of course, which may have cost them the race. But here comes Lars Kramer then. He goes to the inside. Yuri just losing positions right now. Midnight and CC Brain also battling. Oh, Lars there, a little aggressive. And there goes Yuri. He's gone right off down to the back of the grid. I wonder how that one is going to be taken there. That didn't exactly look too great, if I'm going to be honest. But Midnight has got past CC Brain, and now he is on the charge for third place, which is legend.
He certainly is, and I have to say now, CC Brain looking like he was having trouble holding on to the car, trying to keep Midnight behind him, but still there though. The gap still remains at approximately 2 to 3 tenths of a second, so nothing between them. Legend currently in P3. And very shortly, Midnight will certainly look to swerve up. Now, this is the perfect situation for Mercedes. They got both their cars up in the top 4, which is brilliant, certainly in terms of team points, and will certainly be a big boon to their constructors' standings for this season. Naturally, though, Bellina's still on top spot here in the race, and naturally, all these drivers, all they want to do, they want to win races. They've all got competitive edges about them, and certainly here at Silverstone, a win here is something to be cherished, to say the least, as they now head through the next right-hander, through Cops, very shortly down through Maggots and Beckett's. Just look at this, and certainly this rain leaving no crumbs of comfort for any of these drivers, but still, they've got to battle on, and 3 laps amassed already on the soft tyres. This is why they need to make use of them while they have them. Bursting down this stretch once again, nothing separating the top 4, half a second deficit nearly amongst all of them, but Bellina seems to be maintaining a real good steady pace. He put 2 tenths of a second upon the gap that he had before, near enough 7 tenths amassed on Cohen already, which will allow him to carry on there, and certainly Cohen needs DRS to activate as soon as possible, albeit they will be without it as they head around the final corner.
Yeah, and Cohen getting a little bit slidier there. The rain is really starting to affect these tyres a little bit, being a bit more difficult. We have a spinner, that is Rudy. He's gone to the back. He's actually had a bit of contact, I think, with Benny there. So I wonder if those two have collided with each other, which was kind of a bit strange, since I don't think they were really in the same position. But the rain starting to really affect these drivers now. I think Legends just had a little bit of a half spin there. He obviously gets away with it because he's still in third place, but it looks like all these drivers started to struggle. Midnight now understeering as well through the corner, so I expect to see the intermediates on very soon. Maybe if Yuri was quite close, he could have been in a better position, but he's just gone wide there. Maybe the Inter's a bit too early for now, but the tyres are definitely not getting any better. In fact, they're getting much worse in these conditions.
Yeah, another tenth of a second, or tenth and a half, in fact, laid upon Cohen by Bellina. And I have to say, the Alfa Romeo is looking like he's on a mission right now. They're now cascading once again through Maggots and Beckett's, down towards the long straight at Hanger. And very shortly they'll be heading towards Stowe. And there you can see Midnight getting closer and closer to the Pink Panther. That, of course, being Legend, who is still holding on to P3. One slightly wide. You can just see there Midnight finding a lot better traction in through this bend. You just saw their Cone almost looked like he was having a look for the pit lane there, but still maintains it out on track. And I have to say, he's really starting to lose a lot of time now on Bellina, who's starting to try and drag it out here. He's approximately 7.5 tenths into 8 tenths of a second, albeit now Cohen's really pulling it back. So credit to him for that as they head into Sector 1 yet again here on lap 6 of 26. Still plenty of racing left here, folks, as Midnight now go searching for that P3 spot. Podium in the offing here early on in the race, and Midnight very keen to get these overtakes, as you so rightly earlier said there, Sam. Of course, very important they can gain while they've got the pace in the cars, and now Midnight looks to be probing all over the rear of that Racing Point. He is not keen to remain in 4th place.
Yeah, and well, there's no surprises really not King because I've just recognised something. You've got two Mercedes and we're changing conditions around a track that has a lap time of around 1 minute 30, particularly in these conditions perhaps. It will take Midnight quite a while to get round an extra lap. So really, I'm sure he'll be quite desperate to get past Legend and Cohen, so he has that pit stop advantage. I'm sure Cohen perhaps will be the first one into the pits of the Mercedes, but will they double stack is the question. Is it worth it to double stack, even though Midnight will likely lose positions? Because this rain is definitely not going to be easing anytime soon.
No, it's going to be with us for a while. The grey clouds are still littered across the skies of Silverstone, certainly here in Britain, as they now round Stowe yet again. Vale once again beckons. They go past the paddock, and there's Jory's car as well, who seems to be having a bit of a horror show there. He's got the inters on, but naturally, maybe not quite the time for them just yet. They've still got a lot of pace on these softs as they come down the straight once again to commence lap 7 of 26. Midnight finding extraordinary pace here as they head around turn 1, heading through turn 2 and 3, and very soon through Village, and heading towards the loop. Just look at the racing point, currently at the mercy of the Mercedes. Could it be a cut through here from Midnight? Not this time. He's going to be patient. He might take his chances now, heading out of the left-hander at Aintree, down through the straight at Wellington. Have you got news for us, Sam?
Oh, it's a big struggle for Midnight off the exit. He's lost a lot of time there from Legend. You talked about Legend obviously going for a move, but it didn't seem to work for Midnight in the end. That was all really what it's all about, to be honest. I'm looking at the onboards. These guys are really starting to struggle a little bit. Coming out the exit of corners, starting to really lose the pace. And I think Ballina made a mistake on the previous lap on the exit of Maggots and Beckett's, which is why Cohen has been able to gain a little bit of a gap back to it. But Legend just behind. We're all in a big train right now, but who is going to strike first? Who's going to put those intermediates on very much first? And I think Yuri would have been one of them, but I think he probably is playing a little bit more for his teammate right now, because looks like he's nowhere near anyone around him. So I wonder if he's playing it perhaps with Luke's advantage to get Luke.
Here we go, Sam. Here we go. Inside look here from Midnight, who was having a little nose here on Legend, but Legend just managing to hold on for at least a little bit as they head down towards the next left-hander. Now, oh, he goes in deep here, Midnight. Oh, that's very, very close. Very lucky. He did well to hold the car. He was not in the right position in order to make a move. He was only half a car's distance into Legend at the time. Only tapped the rear wheels, and that very nearly sent him spinning, heading around Club Corner. Not ideal at all, but they're heading into the next right-hander here, of course, at Village now. Very shortly the loop, and Midnight is seething. He wants to get past this racing point, but Legend with such a defensive masterclass here, though he's going to be tested once again as they come round Aintree once again down the Wellington straight. Still Legend frustrating that of the Mercedes of Midnight. It's been an enthralling battle between P3 and 4 at this stage, but still Midnight left frustrated, as we keep on saying. He's got a lot of work to do here, Sam.
Yeah, and definitely now the flashing lights are on there. I wonder if, I don't know, but if I'm correct, that means that we are ready for intermediate tyres. I don't know, but the flashing lights are on now. So obviously drivers, I do expect to come in very soon, but again, we saw CC Brain go wide at the exit of corners. These drivers are really starting to struggle. This is perhaps played in Legend's advantage and obviously Midnight's disadvantage, because obviously Midnight is going to be at a similar sort of grip to Legend, and they're really tugging the car, making sure he gets around it properly there, and he's lost a bit of time to Legend. Expect these guys to pit very soon. Is Ballina going to come into the pits this lap? Because not only that, these soft tyres are slightly coming towards the end of their life. Here comes Ballina into the pits then, and Cohen as well. Midnight stays out. Well, he has to stay out because Cohen has pitted, so this is now really important for Midnight. Can he get round this lap? I know it's going to be frustrating, but can he get round this lap and be in front? It's going to be very, very close here.
It certainly is, and as you're quite right, and I've got to say that's the one bane of having both Mercedes up in the top end, certainly, and it means now that Midnight's going to stay out. Have you got news again for us here, Sam?
Cohen's been held, of course. He's in the Mercedes, isn't he? He's been held because all these guys are coming into the pits for intermediates, and now he's right in the middle of the train. Second place is now Legend, followed by CC Brain, followed by Cornet, and now followed by Cohen. So Cohen's now 5th in the train. So if Mercedes Day isn't getting bad enough already now, it's getting a bit worse, because now they've got to really get past some guys. And Benny also in the way. He's on the medium tyres, and for Cohen, should be easy to dispatch, but, well, who knows? Benny could put up a very valiant fight.
He might well do, and he's more within his rights to do so as they come round the next left here at Aintree. It's not a case of him being a lapped car here. He's still very much in P11. And is on the 11th, certainly is on the medium tyres. They come through the next left, and Benny does block off the approach from Cohen, who's now got to really try and lay down the hammer upon this AlphaTauri as they come around the next right-hander. Still in behind is Cohen, still working hard to try and get through. It's the case the AlphaTauri is just going to have to do his best here, just to hold off the approach from the Mercedes now as they come down the straight, the old paddock straight, into the next right-hander at Copse, and he gets it done. Smoothly does it, does Cohen, despite the treacherous conditions here at Silverstone. And now Midnight into the pit lane, and here we go. This is when we'll see whether the stop makes that much of a difference. How much difference will this make?
What is going on in the pit lane there? Ash Pest really forcing himself to get into the pits first, and he's done it. He's got ahead of Lars and Cookie Games. Midnight's got a penalty. He got a 5-second penalty in the pits. I don't know if he got... No, he didn't get damage. I thought he got damage there for a slight second, but he got a 5-second penalty in the pit lane. That is going to be very frustrating. I don't know if he's put that off or not. Ballina, I do want to mention, he's pulled out a massive gap from all these guys. That must have been from the pit lane. Since obviously all these guys most likely got held and Ballina didn't. So Ballina now is well clear of everyone else, and for Midnight is 2.3 seconds. So this is going to be a really big chase. So for Midnight, it's worked brilliantly. He's got a 5-second penalty, which is annoying. A safety car will save him for that, but it's worked out brilliantly for him. But for his teammate Cohen, down in 6th place, I'm sure he would be too happy about that one.
Yeah, it's worked out a treat for Midnight. We weren't sure how this was going to pay off for him, but naturally staying out on that one extra lap did in the world of good. Of course, Cohen getting held in the pits, of course, with his pit crew, and but still Midnight is down 1.8 seconds, or now 1.6 as it's now showing on our screen. So it's going to be a big test. Bellina packs a lot of potential, a lot of quality, as we've already seen this season, but Midnight is no slouch himself. Remember, he was on for that victory at Paul Ricard last week, and due to a puncture at the last minute, as we've discussed so eloquently, obviously prior to the start of this race, naturally Bellina was able to pick up the pieces and take the victory as they come through the next right. Midnight is shaving time off the delta between him and Bellina, already knocked off 0.4 of a second, which is absolutely unbelievable. The Mercedes is on a flyer here and knows he has to work for it. Bellina now currently still in front, albeit the gap cascading down. We're into the 1.3s now pretty much, folks. We've got a fight on our hands for the two top guys in the championship. We could be on for a legendary, I say legendary, British Grand Prix.
Oh yeah, we most certainly are. And for Midnight, we've known what he's like. When he needs to fight, he fights. We've seen this in Bahrain more specifically than ever. When he needs to fight, he comes out and fights. And you know what? He's going to bring it to Ballina. He's got that 5-second penalty. He will not care. He will continue to really, really push that Mercedes to its limits and look to catch up with Ballina. He's already basically drifting around corners, really trying to push the pace of that Mercedes, and with doing so, he's also losing time by making a few mistakes there. Ballina probably being a bit cautious at the moment, making sure he gets to the line. He knows he's clear of Midnight behind. We have a safety car though here, I've just noticed. That's because Rudy's out of this race. He's obviously binned it at the exit of turn 1. So we said about this, we are on for a really, really interesting fight here.
Yeah, we are, and obviously that's music to the ears of Midnight, of course. Now that we're under safety car conditions, that can pull the gap, of course, to all the cars back together. It's good news for Cohen as well, remember, who got held in the pit lane. It means now that they're all grouped together, Mercedes have a great opportunity to earn themselves some serious extra points. Remember, X in the pit lane, Midnight gains so much delta on Bellina. He is the faster car, technically out on track, based on what we've seen out of the pit lane. So extraordinary stuff. It might have been the case, I have to say, Sam, that maybe Midnight opted for a more wetter setup heading into this race. Maybe that's why we didn't see the outright pace in qualifying.
I wonder if that is the case, but I'm also interested because on the dashboard, it's showing they've all got that blue spanner, which suggests they're all going to come into the pits. Ballina doesn't. Will Midnight? No, he won't. So that's perhaps either a glitch or they're all just basically considering it just in case. But I'm not sure if these intermediates will make it to the end. I'm not too sure how long the intermediates last, but obviously the mediums, I think they last less than the mediums, so they may have to pit again, all these guys, but they've all decided not to, except from Simon. Simon pits this lap, so I'm wondering if these guys all do have to pit again, but is so cautious that they cannot make a proper decision right now. Ballina in the lead, Midnight second, and CC Brain in third place. It's all going to get much closer. It's all going to get more competitive, and I'm very intrigued to see how this second half of the race will go.
Yeah, well, there's Ballina currently out on track still in P1, and he's just come up behind the safety car as they make their way down the stretch at Wellington. And very soon down towards Brooklands. There's the Mercedes of Midnight as well in behind. The two championship leaders still at the top end. In behind as well, you've got CC Brain, Legend in P4 as well, who's had an extraordinary race here today after an exceptional qualifying session. You've got to give Legend credit here, Sam. He has had an extraordinary day. Naturally, we haven't seen much of him throughout the season, and certainly it's great to have him here with us here at this Friday night here for WOR. And I got to say, what a way to come in this season. Of course, he's only picked up 2 points prior to this race. That was at Bahrain. So to come from that to not scoring any points at all for the rest of the season to all of a sudden being P4 and challenging for the top end and for podiums, this is extraordinary from the man in the Racing Point.
Yeah, he's doing a very good job, Legend. He had a really good qualifying, of course, starting third on the grid. He has lost a position. However, we can obviously blame, the pit stops for that, and the insane amount of stacking, which obviously caused Cohen, who probably undeservedly is down in 6th place. He doesn't deserve to be down in 6th, but he's in 6th place because of that. And, well, this is the opportunity that Cohen's been waiting for, well, for all of them, to really prove where they should be on this grid. Because if Legend started third, he can get back into third now. He's much closer to CC Brain. There's no gaps, and well, for Jury, I have to say he actually retired, I think, in the pit lane, so he'd be quite gutted here because I reckon he would be able to get back in this fight as well. So, unfortunate for the Red Bull driver there in MNT Jury, but there's nothing we can do now. He's retired from the race.
He has indeed, and naturally not a good day for him. And certainly for Red Bull, both cars are outside the points, of course. Luke in P11 needs to start racking up some overtakes in order to get himself into the points-paying positions. Remember, points are scored between P1 and P10. Standard point system here at WOR for the PS4 Championship and for Xbox as well on Monday nights. We just want to obviously thank all of you for all your support here, of course. The PS4 is at its debut season, of course, at this moment in time. First time you've seen it here in World Online Racing, and it's a pleasure to bring you the action every Friday here, of course, at 8 p.m. And I hope you've all been enjoying your evening, of course. And once again, we are leading towards a spectacle, a fantastic finish. We're literally halfway through the race now. Lap 13 of 26. We've got another 13 laps remaining here, of course, currently under safety car ruling. But what this tees us up for is a potential thriller for the end of this Grand Prix. Still Bellina on top. Midnight in P2. And once again, we're seeing Alfa Romeo against Mercedes for the win in this championship. There you can see CC Brain in P3 for AlphaTauri. In behind as well, Legend, who we spoke about, an incredible performance today. Cornet as well in P5. Just look at the names here. Cohen as well in P6, also representing Mercedes. If he can get a good getaway, potentially laying down a hammer upon the rest of the grid that's ahead of him here. Albeit he has got a penalty, and so does Matthew as well behind him. And look at this. The Ferrari driver, HRT Agoro, in his first race in WOR, the PS4 Championship, and already he's up in the top 10 and fighting here, Sam.
Yeah, very, very. We've not talked about the Ferraris really too much today, and Igoro up to 8th place at the moment. And where did he start? He started in 8th place, so he's had a very, very good day, a very calm sort of day. Haven't seen much of him so far, but it's good that he's maintained position here at the moment. I do want to mention though about Midnight again. If he's going to win this race, and we do have to have stops again, if Midnight is going to win this race, he's going to have to get past Ballina ASAP. He's going to have to pull a gap as soon as possible. And even if he pulls a gap, if there's a huge train of cars behind him pitting on the same lap, Midnight could be completely destroyed because he has to get that 5-second penalties taken off if they do have to pit again. And, well, I think they may do. And, Cohen's got a 5-second penalty with Matthew there, so that's obviously not good for him either. So we could be in for a very interesting end to the race. All tyres cold as we get back underway though, and all drivers sliding about though, George.
They are indeed. They're heading around turn 1 now and cascading through Farm Curve yet again. Village up ahead as well. And just look at this. Bellina getting off to a steady start, but also Midnight is right in his rear. He's not letting the Alpha get away. A little bit of oversteer there. And just literally as they head around the next left-hander, cost him his turn in circle. It allows Bellina to open up a 9 to 8 tenths of a second advantage on Midnight. No DRS, remember, under wet conditions here, folks. They come down now towards the next left-hander. This, of course, being at Brooklands, heading in towards Lutfield. Still on top is Bellina in P1, Midnight in P2, currently 7 tenths of a second the deficit as they come round now. The next right-hander is down to 5, and now Midnight once again scrapping, bringing down that delta gap. In mind as well, CC Brain in P3, also half a second back as they run through now Copse Corner, heading up towards Maggots and Beckett's. Chances in the offing here, a huge battle in prospect here.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what these yellow flags are for. I don't know if that's just a glitch with the lobby. I'm hoping that doesn't affect overtakes or anything, because sometimes that tends to. I'm going to remain hopeful though now, because Midnight has closed the gap into Ballina. A bit of a slow start, but he seems to be getting back underway here now, and Ballina seems to be holding his lead quite strongly at the moment. But Midnight and Ballina getting away from CC Brain. CC Brain struggling a little bit. He's not under pressure though from Legend behind. Legend just sticking in that 4th place for now. Not rushing anything, but he's got Cornet behind challenging him as well. Everyone seeming to be quite close, but no one looking to make overtakes too much, and that is Dynastics off the track. That was just him getting out the way of everyone. That's good sportsmanship from the Williams, but these two at the front, they're the main focus right now, because look how much look how much more confident Midnight is in the braking zones compared to Ballina. But how about the exit here? Midnight very wary on the exit, while Ballina quite cautiously away, and that seems to be winning it for today at the moment. But Midnight is closing in, and we do expect to see these two battle race long, George.
Yeah, and don't forget, Midnight has got a penalty, so he needs to make a move as soon as possible and needs to spring some delta time in order to make the penalty null and void as they come through the next right-hander at Woodcote, heading down the stretch towards Copse. And still, once again, Bellina and Midnight together, but they're very, very close now, within 2 tenths of a second very shortly. Bellina going slightly wider than Midnight, and Midnight now breaking into that 2 tenths of a second gap as they cascade through Maggots and Beckett's again. These two in tandem, heading through the next left, down through the next right into Chapel. The Mercedes and the Alfa Romeo certainly now once again all guns blazing here in the WOR Championship. Bellina finding that extra little bit of getaway, heading out of the exit of Maggots and Beckett's in Chapel, heading into the next right-hander, this time at Stowe. Again finding the inside line, hooking the curb is Midnight. He has that little bit of extra grip, heading through this section of the circuit, breaking down now into Out of Vale into Club. And as they do so, still Bellina still hangs on and frustrates Midnight heading through this race. He needs to take his chances. Midnight needs to get going. He needs to try and break that penalty gap.
Yeah, but it seems to be through the first sector where Midnight seems to find the advantage for his second sector as well. Very close to the back of Ballina. But as soon as he gets close, Ballina seems to peel away a little bit, perhaps to the frustration of Midnight. But look how close he is onto the rear of the Alfa Romeo. He's almost touching that rear end of the Alfa Romeo, but then just moves away from him a little bit at the exit of the corners there. And, well, he's stuck behind Ballina, who he needs to get by. 3 tenths behind. He seems to be desperate to get by as well. Very close to the rear of the Alfa Romeo, but when is the right place to move? Where is the right place to move is what Midnight will be thinking and saying in his head, because he needs to think about this strategically, but also very quickly, as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 2. That'll be Cookie Games. He has spun round there at the exit of Luffield. So into Maggots and Beckett's we go now. This is definitely not over. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Very close there between Midnight and Ballina, but seems like Ballina had a little mistake there, which led Midnight to get close, but just not close enough now. Midnight still behind Ballina.
He is indeed. They're heading down towards Stowe now once again, and Ballina now obviously licking his wounds after that very treacherous move through Maggots and Beckett's, very nearly losing the car in Midnight and very nearly saw his chance but had to duck off because of course that Alfa Romeo was coming back across as they come now down through the next right-hander, of course, very shortly down the Hamilton straight before they reach Abbey. Still Ballina in front, in behind Midnight in P2. Now just over 0.4 of a second the gap, another 3-second time penalty to Midnight, and that's going to be a crushing blow here in this Grand Prix. He took way too much of that curb, and now that is going to allow Ballina at least a little bit of extra respite now, and Midnight knows that it's once again curtains here potentially, again bottling the race that he so potentially could have won, and again it's going to light, I'm sure, a hard fury in the belly of that Mercedes driver.
Not only that, look further down the grid, look how close everyone is. They're all in a massive train at the moment, so any penalties picks up is going to be a real big hit to any driver that has got them. But 8 seconds of penalties is huge for Midnight. I'm not sure, but this might take them out of the points at the moment if this race was to finish. So at the moment, Midnight really needs to make sure he gets past Ballina, or at least tries to get out some sort of gap away from these guys so he gets some sort of point. And look how confident he is compared to Ballina through the first part of Maggots and Beckett's, but just doesn't seem to have the momentum to get by at the moment. But he seems to have a particular technique which is working better than Ballina's at the moment, but he just needs to execute the pass whenever it is possible.
Yeah, he does. They're now rounding Stowe again, but still, currently Ballina frustrating Midnight once again. He must be really seething at the moment. The Mercedes man, he's trying all he can to try and knock past Ballina, but still, once again, the Alfa Romeo ever resilient, holding on to that P1. Remember, winning last time at the Paul Ricard out of extraordinary circumstances. That's 2 wins this season for Ballina. He could well make it 3 here today at Silverstone as they come through to the first sector now, heading into the next right-hander at, of course, the village curve, heading up towards the loop, and very shortly down towards Aintree. Remember, Midnight ever quick through this sector of the track, but as soon as they go onto the straight, Ballina opens it up, and as you can see, once again, he has opened up yet a little bit of an extra gap in front of that Mercedes man as they head through the next left-hander at Brookland, still nose to tail as they come now through Luffield. Nothing separates them indeed, but Midnight, of course, trying all he can, trying to put a spike in the dream of the driver of the Alfa Romeo car, Ballina, who's done so well at the start of this season after his heartache at the Bahrain Grand Prix where he crashed out and was found at the bottom end of the field. He then came back with a win at the Netherlands, and then also after the chaos that was Azerbaijan, of course, where we had no race, he came back and won again in France. But here comes Midnight again in Maggots and Beckett's. He finds so much pace, he's extraordinary in that section of the track, but once again unable to find the traction on the outset of Chapel as they head now down towards the next right-hander at Stowe. Still no answer for Ballina here, and Midnight once again needs to wait and be patient because this Alfa Romeo is doing such a sterling job of defending the position.
We're getting closer and closer, and I tell you what, from Maggots and Beckett's, the way Midnight can get through there much quicker than Ballina is a huge concern. We could be seeing an incident between these two. We could be seeing both of these guys crashing out, for who knows. He looks so much more confident, does Midnight, through these corners and through there. He looks very, very confident. Is he going to try and launch it through turn 3? No, he's not. He's going to sit behind a little bit more, but he looks so confident through Maggots and Beckett's, does Midnight, and at the moment he will be enjoying the fact that these two are getting away from CC Brain a little bit. But not only that, he's given himself a really good battle. But I'm sure Ballina will want to keep in the lead of this race because the last 2 races that he's won, technically speaking, he hasn't won it fully through merit. Of course, in France, he got a bit fortunate with the puncher from Midnight, and of course, in what was it? In the Netherlands, sorry. Of course, the win, it came because KJ Eltink had a penalty. And we're talking about Midnight having a penalty, but Ballina wants to finish his first on track. And Midnight having a little bit of a moment now, the exit of Cops there. But yeah, Ballina really, really wanting that race win on track, but Midnight getting so close to the back end, really, through Maggots, and now coming through the exit onto Chapel. He's just not able to close in close enough, but these two starting to run out the ERS as well, starting to run out of the chances for Midnight, as it looks like.
Yeah, they are. They're still nose to tail once again as they head through Stowe and making their way down through Vale towards the club corner yet again. The Mercedes has been absolutely relentless. Bellina doing all he can to keep off or at least try and defend the position. Like you say, he wants to win this on track. And I have to say, huge brownie points here on the table for Bellina as running wide goes Midnight, of course, losing traction out onto the Hamilton straight out of club corner as they head around Abbey, now through Farm, down towards the village. There's Bellina there. Of course, Midnight very quick in this sector of the track, goes very close to the rear wing. They have the Alfa Romeo, a little diving maneuver perhaps on the inside as the door was open, but not this time. He cannot find the answer. Bellina still holding on. Midnight in P2, knocking on every door, looking for every escape route in order to try and get himself on the top end as they rush down now through the Wellington Straight into Brooklands. Still once again nose to tail. It is absolutely fascinating, this encounter. You wouldn't have thought that Midnight has a penalty. He's still throwing down like it's nobody's business. This is lap 20 of 26. This has gone so quickly here, Sam.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So it's still got 6 more laps of this action. Well, why not Midnight? He has to really show Ballina he's still a threat. Maybe this race is over for the Mercedes driver. He's got a little wider there. That's probably another warning. He's not going to bother, though. He really wants to win this race on track to show he has that pace, he has that performance, and basically to give Ballina a little bit of a scare here. Obviously, towards the next couple of rounds. It may not be one today, but obviously for the next couple of rounds, he will be looking to be right on the tail of this Alfa Romeo, and that's exactly what you're showing here, telling them, I'm still right on your tail. It doesn't matter if you win today or not. I'm still here battling against you, and here he comes. He's lost a little bit of time now, but I'm sure he'll be looking to get that time back. But I wonder if all this pushing is really not working well with his tyres, really drifting it around the corners now, really starting to struggle.
They are indeed. Like, literally now, the amount of times that they've thrown it into all these corners, obviously with Ballina defending at the same time. Midnight, we got a VSC as well. Lars Kramer, I think, has actually had an unfortunate mishap. He is out of the race. That's a DNF for the McLaren. And that means now we're under VSC rules, which could, again, open up the door for an opportunity for Midnight if he can get a nice getaway. In behind, CC Brain has managed to obviously stay or try and stay within a second, but now that's obviously drifting out under the VSC. Legend still in P4. There's still a battle going on for P3 on track. Legend could be on the mark for a podium here today, obviously, given the fact that Midnight's got a penalty. That'll open the door for both CC Brain and Legend as well. Don't forget Corny in behind these. Cohen has got a penalty as well. It's just all seemed to have fallen apart for Mercedes through track ruling, and that is not the way they would have wanted to lose this race.
Yeah, and Simon getting a drive-through penalty there. He's in 12th place battling for points, so that's his points chance pretty much over, unless obviously extreme circumstances. Midnight's got the opportunity this time, and on the back of him, he hasn't really caused too much contact, but Midnight, he's lucky there really. Ballina must have had a bit of a heart attack there at the exit of that corner. I thought for a moment that Midnight was going to go straight into him, and that is Ballina completely gone, but Midnight still not over here. Is he going to send it to the inside? He definitely thinks about it, just isn't alongside close enough to get there. He still has the momentum to the inside now. Now goes Midnight down the inside there on the curb. It's going to be difficult now. He's on the outside. Is Ballina going to do a Max Verstappen on Charles Leclerc? He definitely is, keeping Midnight at bay right behind him, but these two battling like insanely at the moment, and Midnight has taken a pure advantage and a chunk of time out of Ballina's. This race is not over on the track.
No, and look at CC Brain as well, looking to come and join the fight. Just look at this. The gap's been brought right down between the AlphaTauri and the Mercedes as they head through the next left-hander now. Once again, Midnight left frustrated. Ballina defending for all his worth here as they head around the Aintree corner. Down the stretch, remember, Ballina knows if he can keep Midnight close to the pack, he will cascade out of the points, and that will give Ballina a huge bit of leverage. But he's opened the door, and the Mercedes has a little look down the inside, heading out of Brooklands into left field as they come around the next right-hander. This is absolutely extraordinary scenes here at Silverstone, heading out of Woodcote now, down towards Copse. Nothing separates these two. Ballina and Midnight still battling like nobody's business here on track. Into Copse, throwing it over the curbs. Here comes Ballina, here comes Midnight. The two of them have been tussling right through the latter part of this race. Like we said before the start, Midnight getting close once again through Maggots and Beckett, once again looking for an opportunity. Fireworks here at the British Grand Prix. They're heading out now through Chapel, down down the stretch, this time of the hangar straight, down towards Stowe. Still Bellina, still holding on in behind Midnight, with C-Brain only 6/10 back, but Bellina with enough of a gap to thwart the Mercedes menace. He's down in P2. No moves being made just yet, with only 4 laps, or should I say, nearly 3 laps left to go.
I'm absolutely loving this. I've never seen such an intense race towards the end. Maybe, of course, if Midnight gets by, he doesn't win this race. It doesn't matter. The racing on track is really exceptional here between the two of them. A lot of space given, a lot of care between both the drivers, a lot of respect for everyone on this grid. Really doing a good job. CC Brain and Legend, let's not forget about them. They could still be in this fight. If they get close enough to Midnight, looking at the amount of ERS is still left on those cars in front, particularly Midnight, who's going to be using to try and get past Balliner. If these two get close, CC Brain and Legend, Midnight will lose places, but these two are going to be thinking, why do I even try? I'm going to get a podium anyway at this point, because Midnight's not going to extend an 8-second gap, surely, in 3 laps, which would be really, really insane if he does. But these two still battling here, 3/10 between them. It's very close between everyone now on this grid, but still no overtakes at the moment, but the intensity is building up. Midnight getting much closer now.
Yeah, I got to say, CC Brain and Legend both have not looked like scoring podiums this season. As now once again Midnight goes deep here on Ballina, heading in through Magnussen, Beckett's now through Chapel. Remember, CC Brain's best finish was in fact a P6 earlier on in the season, and that was funny enough. Looking at the previous time stats. I have to say, that was back at the Netherlands, and he hasn't done anything quite like it since. But a podium in the offing, as you now saw, Midnight just losing a lot of traction, heading in towards the club corner. That is not what you want, certainly if you want to be challenging for the lead of the race. Naturally, though, it might be too little too late at this stage, mind you, as we've now into lap 24 of 26. 2 laps remain, half a second separating Ps 3 and 4, not to mention Ps 2 and 3, and still Midnight trying to knock on the door. Will he send it? Another 3 seconds for Midnight. Surely that's all she wrote, folks. Midnight will not be finishing in the points today, should it stay like this.
Yeah, and we've got to think Balliner. He's one more warning, and Balliner gets a penalty here. He's going to be so cautious these last couple of laps. Maybe, of course, he knows Midnight won't finish in the points, but he wants that win. Balliner, as anyone would want that win, pretty much. So CC Brain right now could be actually in a prime position to win this race if Balliner makes a mistake and gets that penalty. So CC Brain could actually miraculously still win this race. This is how close and how intense this race is towards the end. But Midnight, I'm sure he still won't give in, even though he knows that his race basically for win-wise is over. He still wants to win this race on track.
He does indeed. Ballina knows that this is a huge coup. And remember, like I said before, if Ballina can keep the pack close, that will mean that Midnight cascades out of the points, and that will be vital in terms of the standings. Because currently, in the offing, 9 points is what separates Ballina and Midnight right now. 25 points next to no points, and that will give Ballina a race advantage at least, heading into the rest of the championship, keeping his current title challenger, Midnight, at bay for the time being. And that will certainly go a long way to giving Ballina a lot of ease in the rest of the championship. And then, of course, when we head into Belgium, we've got Spa-Francorchamps coming up after this, folks, next week. It is going to be a thrilling encounter, naturally. But like we said before, Ballina will go into it with a lot more ease, knowing that 25 points will be added on top of the separation that's separated between him and Midnight. So once again, it is all about mind games, strategy, heading into winning a championship. And Ballina using all his senses here to try and apply that deficit upon Midnight, certainly. And you can imagine that Midnight must be frustrated with how this race has gone.
Oh, he must be very, very frustrated. We thought last week would be frustrating, and this is... I said this earlier, he'll be cool-headed going into tonight. He's kind of really got a little bit too frustrated, though, it looks like, and it's cost him so much time, so much penalties, etc. But going into next week at Belgium, it's going to be one interesting race. Ballina, at this point, is going to be leading this championship by a heavy margin. But let's remind ourselves, Midnight still on track, excluding the penalties, is still in second place. One slip up from Ballina, similar to Midnight, could seriously change the complexion of this championship and put it back in the swing of a very tight battle indeed. And, you know, that's what I'm saying here. These two are still the top two here. Evidently, Midnight's not down in 7th at the moment. It's not like he's had a performance like that's completely been poor on track, but it's just the penalties which has cost him so dearly in this race. But he's still stuck behind Ballina as we look to enter the final lap very soon.
We certainly will indeed, and Matthew getting very close to Cohen as well. Those two have been really gunning for it for that P6 spot, and Cohen still holding on for the time being. But just look at Midnight still, and once again nose to tail. And this is going to be the story of the championship, folks. Penalties aside, here at Britain, these two have given us something very, very commendable to watch. They're coming down now towards the next right-hander. Will Midnight go for a last gasp anyway? Try and at least put some mind games into the mix of this championship. Does send it through the inside there, heading into Aintree, but Ballina's got enough in the tank to hold it off as they round the next left-hander out of the loop, out of Aintree, down the Wellington straight now, heading towards Brooklands, and still the Alfa Romeo on top. Bellina with an exquisite drive there in defending from every single blow that Midnight has pounded upon that Alfa Romeo, coming around the next right-hander as well. I have to say, who's been your driver of the day here, Sam?
Oh, it's so difficult to say who's the driver of the day, but if I'm honest, with the amount of pressure he has dealt with and the amount of, well, pretty much everything he has dealt with, no penalties, nothing, it's got to be Ballina. He's kept at the front of this field and he's withstanded such large amounts of pressure from Midnight behind him, and he still might have a little bit more to deal with the Mercedes, but it looks like he'll be clear of him now to win this race. But still, he's my driver of the day. He's withstanded the pressure. He's really done well and he's kept it clean. CC Brain would also be a good contender, but it has to be Ballina, just simply because he's won this race and he's really put on a mighty performance here today.
Yeah, leave your comments in the chat, folks. Who was your driver of the day? As now we see Ballina coming through the final couple of bends, down through Club Corner now. He's done it. He's defended. He's been merciless. It's VRT Ballina. He wins the British Grand Prix. And as we quite rightly said, Midnight will cascade down through the points positions. He's outside the top 10, and that gives Cohen P10 as well. What looked like a sensational day for Mercedes has become a nightmare. P10 and 11, one singular point for the Mercedes team. But kudos to CC Brain and Cornet, both of them into the podium places. Sensational drive, but more importantly, a great drive by Ballina, improving that delta at the top of the driver standings. Once again, he takes victory on his third win of the season. What a talent, Sam.
Oh, I need a breather after that one. But Ballina, P1, look at Midnight. He was actually close, to getting points. We thought he was out of the points. He was actually fairly close, in 11th place in the end. Very unfortunate not to at least pick up a point after one marvellous performance from him as well. Let's not discredit Midnight's performance. It's been absolutely amazing. But Ballina taking another victory. He's got the confidence of the world right now. He's won 3 races on the bounce now and takes a rather large grasp now in the title race. He takes a big margin ahead of Midnight in second place there. But a really, really torrid day for Mercedes for what could have been quite an incredible performance for both of them has turned into quite a facepalm performance down in 10th and 11th.
Certainly has been. We'll go through the final classifications now, folks. What a phenomenal race. Ballina takes the win in P1, of course. Alfa Romeo once again celebrating, and also a fastest lap to boot as well. Sensational indeed from that man. CC Brain in P2 for AlphaTauri. P3 for Cornet as well. Messina Rakeen as well. Mighty performance from P12 on the grid up to P4. Legend in P5. A great race as well from him. Albeit though he started from P3 on the grid. P5 though very acceptable. Igor in P6 on his first start in WOR. Ash Best in P7. Luke in P8. Matthew in P9. Cohen, the sole Mercedes in the points today, P10. Midnight, after that exhilarating race, doing all he could to try and knock Bellina off his top spot in P11. Outside of the points here, frustrating day for the Mercedes team. Dan in P12. Dino in P13 after starting P19. Good performance. Cookie Games in P14. Jesus Simon in P15. Benny in P16. Of course, we had DNS with Lars Kramer, Dynastics, Rudy, and Joery. But what a sensational race, Sam, once again. But Ballina just too good on the day.
Yeah, a brilliant performance today. Qualifying and the race, of course, defending heavily from Midnight, not making any mistakes whatsoever. Did the Alfa Romeo, a top performance from him all round, and obviously getting that P1 in qualifying as well. Really, really good performance in qualifying as well. Quite clear, but in the race, again, he's just got basically the double, basically. Did he get the fastest lap? Oh, he's got the hat trick. He has got the hat trick there. Hazi Ballina, the race win, the qualifying, or the pole position, the race win, and of course the fastest lap as well. An absolutely astonishing performance from the Dutch driver, and he takes a rather large chunk lead into Belgium in the championship.
Well, I have to say, he looks like a formidable force. I mean, I have to say, 3 wins in the race for the championship is no mean feat. And certainly against this grid that we've got here in WOR, certainly on the PS4 top tier, it's an extraordinary effort to certainly manage to get yourself on top spot after a hellacious fight with Shazoo Midnight, who, of course, has looked incredible all season. The luck has just not been on his side after a very disappointing performance of Paul Ricard. He looked to come back with the bit between his teeth. Obviously, was really pushing in the latter stages. Unfortunately, all that pushing garnered him all those penalties. He really needs to almost, I suppose, take a step back and sort of reassess, maybe come back and take the fight at Belgium in Spa. I mean, I don't think this fight is over by any means.
Definitely not. And the tracks we have coming up next as well. I mean, like we said, this second half of the season is an entire fan favourite, isn't it? Belgium, Italy, Japan, Austria, and Brazil. Tracks we all love. We all adore these tracks. And I discluded Abu Dhabi there, because there are some people that like Abu Dhabi, but in terms of real life racing, it's not exactly the best of tracks. But any other track from those lot, absolutely brilliant racing we are set to see. And I mean, I cannot wait for this, honestly. We are going to go hammer and tong right to the end, it looks like, between Ballina and Midnight. Those two look like the two contenders. They finished 1-2 on track today, and it's basically been the story. Ballina comes out on top again, but I'm still saying this, Midnight will come back very, very soon, and he will look to assert his dominance once again.
Well, if that was anything to go by that performance, it certainly does go to show that we are going to be in for a real treat heading into the rest of the season. I mean, if we can see, I mean, obviously, like I said before, put Midnight's penalties aside, coming through the rest of the rest of the season, like you say, the tracks we have, exhilarating. We got Belgium next week, Italy, Japan, Austria, Abu Dhabi, Brazil, folks. It doesn't get any better than that. All of those tracks garner exceptional racing, certainly ideal racing that we're going to be seeing with the likes of Ballina and, of course, Midnight. This championship fight is far from over, folks. Of course, Ballina making it 3 wins this season. The sole man in the 3-win category right now. Midnight still in the fight. Remember, he's had a win this season. Should have won Paul Ricard, you would argue. But again, we're going to see a real tight-knit battle between both great drivers that we're seeing nose to tail every week without fail, and that is what makes stories. That is what creates the drama that we love to see here in WOR. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to have any interviews, folks. I'm just trying to keep myself up to date. I'm not sure whether we will have any today, but Sam, obviously looking ahead next week heading into Belgium, what does today mean? Are we going to be seeing once again a Ballina v Midnight tussle?
Well, in my opinion, for Midnight, I'm sure he will be more aggressive next week. He'll have to be. If Ballina beats him again next week and beats him convincingly like he did today, obviously next week, in terms of the points, maybe not obviously the positions, but if say Midnight finishes 5th and Ballina wins again, Ballina is going to have all the confidence in the world, and Midnight is just going to really fall behind. It is basically a performance that Midnight needs next week. He needs a top performance for Ballina. Well, he's got a lot of confidence right now. A small result, which would be like a P3 for something, he'll be happy with, I reckon. He'll be happy to get some top quality points. But for Midnight, it is crucial he finishes ahead of Ballina to keep this thing alive, because Ballina is going to start running away with it if not.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think we're going to be having any driver interviews today, folks, but I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure bringing you all the action here tonight. I hope you've all enjoyed the racing that we've held here this evening. Obviously, if you do so, and you have done so, please leave a like and also subscribe to the WOR channel. Of course, we want to hear from you as well. Please contact WOR as well. You can get to their Twitter page at WOR League. You can also find me on Twitter at George Morgan TV. And Sam, what's your Twitter handle?
At VSL Sam.
There you go. You can check out Sam as well. Ask him any question you like. I'm sure he'll answer. No problem at all. But I got to say, folks, it was a tremendous effort here today. A phenomenal race. Ballina takes the victory. We're going to go to Spa. And once again, Midnight, the clock struck 12 on his performance here today. We'll see you next week, folks, at Spa.